Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're joining us from, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Kyle from Business Review, and I'll be your host today. It's our pleasure to have Prism ID with us, who's presenting this webinar entitled, Why You Should Take Advantage of the AI 7240 and Adopt the New GS1 Clinical Trial Barcode Standards. Today's guest speakers are Neil Piper, Senior Manager, AIDC GS1, and Steve Ellison, VP of Global Clinical Trials at Prism ID. I'd like to welcome everyone to the webinar platform on 24. You'll notice that this webinar is browser-based, so if you disconnect for any reason, please just click on the link you received via email to rejoin the session. If you want to ask any questions, you can send those in via the questions widget. Just type those into the box in the top left-hand corner of your screen, click Submit, and we'll have some time at the very end to address any questions or thoughts that you may have. Please use the yellow help widget if you require any assistance, and you can move, resize, and maximize any of the windows in front of you to get a better view of the slides. But for now, please allow me to welcome Neil Piper. Over to you, Neil.
Thank you very much indeed there, Carl. Hello, everybody. Good morning and good afternoon to you. We're going to start off by clicking through some slides. We've got a few slides for you today. The agenda is we're going to talk a bit about who GS1 are, where GS1 focuses and where we work within the life sciences sector, the story behind the new application identifier that's been created to support this requirement, a little bit of history about barcoding, and then we'll be talking about how you can address your life science clinical trial software needs using Prism software, and we'll have some question and answers at the end. Okay. So we'll start off with a little bit about GS1, about who we are, what we do, where we work, and so on. I'll be very surprised if anyone hasn't actually used GS1 standards. They pretty much appear on every product that you might purchase in a supermarket. You just don't know you're using GS1 standards. So typically they appear on things like the barcodes. So GS1, we create a common foundation for businesses by uniquely identifying, accurately capturing and automatically sharing vital information about products, places, location, and other things as well. GS1 is also one of the issuing agencies as determined for regulatory compliance. So that is for things like medical device regulations, Falsified Medicines Directive for pharmaceutical products, and for things in the USA for UDI. So there are 4 issuing agencies in Europe and 3 in North America. We are neutral and not-for-profit, we're user-driven and governed, and we're global. We currently have presence in 114 different countries. The latest 2 being admitted to the GS1 family is GS1 Myanmar and GS1 Cameroon. So a little bit about the GS1 standards. The GS1 standards are there for what we call identify, capture, and share. So the identify element is providing data that can identify things. So that could be, as mentioned earlier, a product, something that you might buy, a service you sell, a location that you need to identify for when you're shipping goods, so you need to know where it goes to. It could be a consumer, a patient, whatever. So if you're unfortunate enough to have to go to hospital, the wristband that's applied to the patient, that would probably include an identifier that's a GS1 identifier to identify you as a patient. Second element of our standards is something called the capture element, which is the technologies and barcodes and RFID tags that can encode that data. And there we have numerous numbers of barcodes. The one that you're going to see most of today is a barcode called the GS1 data matrix, and Steve will talk about that a little bit later. The last element of our standards is something called the share element. So that's a means and mechanism for allowing members and users to share information without having any human interaction. So it's machine-to-machine sharing of information. GS1's Vision. GS1's healthcare envisions a future where supply chain security and efficiency and traceability are achieved by our standards, and ultimately patient safety is secured. So the ultimate goal is making sure that a patient receives the right drug at the right time through the right process. We do work with other organisations. So we work with a lot of organisations, typically the ones you'll see labelled here. So for example, ISO, all our standards are ISO based. The barcodes that are used to encode the data all have ISO specifications, with the exception of one, but we won't talk about that today. We also work actively with associations like the World Health Organization. So, why is there a need for global standards for investigational products? So on some of the slides you might see that referred to as IP. So in this context and in this presentation, it stands for investigational products, nothing else. Okay. Currently, paper investigational product management examples. On the left is an example of a current paper delivery form for investigational product management, and on the right is an inventory log. These are all manually managed and heavily paper-based. So the drive is to try and move away from paper to make things electronic and capturing the information electronically using mobile devices or whatever else you might need to use. So following on from that, sometimes these products have multiple barcodes. And these multiple barcodes can cause numerous problems because people don't know what barcode to scan and what barcode contains the right information. So for example, how does a pharmacist who's dispensing this product know which barcode to scan? And sometimes they still have to rely on a manual process for getting this information. So it could still be a label applied to the product that contains the information they have to read off and then transpose that information into a clinical system. So what has been developed? Well, the way GS1 works is GS1 comes together with industry to develop standards. They are user-driven. So the clinical trials group was formed with 60 representatives, 37 clinical trial organisations, and there were 9 months of weekly meetings that took place. These are chaired by Victor Dupuy, Pfizer, Sanofi, and so on. Okay, so in essence, the industry comes together to work on this standard to make sure that it meets the requirements that industry needs. So our standards are for all parts of the industry. The standard has been developed to make sure specific industry needs are catered for. So in this instance, it's allowing the clinical trials element of data to be encoded in an application identifier that can be used in barcodes and shared with other partners. So we have examples here just showing a typical manufacturer with sponsor having information that goes through the supply chain, and you can identify each thing uniquely. This standard has been developed to make sure that every single scenario can be accommodated. So for example, we have blinded trials where the investigational product, comparator or placebo product is given to the patient is not known. And also we have it as unblinded trials as well. So across the board of benefits. A lot of benefits for both parties. That's the person or the company creating the information. The benefits to the suppliers are detailed there. You have a lot easier ways of compiling information that can be encoded into a barcode. You have the information that can be shared seamlessly between different parties because they know the information, they know the structure of it. The barcode can accommodate all the data. So for example, you'll see a lot of different barcodes that are out on the market that can contain a lot of information and some can't contain a lot of information. So the barcode chosen, or barcode commonly used in healthcare, is the GS1 data matrix barcode, and this can contain a lot of information. So the information you see there could be the batch number, the serial number, the protocol ID number, the GTIN, so we're talking about the identifier that identifies the product itself, and this information can then be shared with different people. And the benefits for the patients, most importantly, the safety element. The patients are kept safe because the information is common, it's shared, and it's understood. This is the principle of GS1 standards. So the scope of work. For the label of this investigational product, the work group also included solution providers and to cater for the situation where it might be needed for other days and other information. So for the label on the investigational product, the work group worked with lots of other parties to make sure that the standard delivered and created was appropriate for everybody. So on this slide here, you see a lot of the different information that is, some of it is existing GS1 information and some of it is new. So for example, the shipper and the container, the location information, the patient identifiers, the staff identifiers, all of that is a current use of GS1 standards. It currently already exists in the GS1 system. So for example, the GSRN that's labelled there for the patient, that could be used to identify the patient or the caregiver. So that way we know exactly who the drug was given to and who gave the investigational product to the patient. So why do we introduce global identifiers? Well, the as is at the moment is typically what we call generic internal data that is only applicable to certain systems and certain environments. And the 2B we've moved to now is having a global identifier to identify the protocol ID that can be used with existing GS1 standards. So these are things like the GTIN. So the GTIN is the product identifier. We can also put GS1 data as associated data towards the GTIN, for example, the batch, the serial number, and you can use other data as well, because as I said, the GS1 data matrix barcode can encode all of that. So bringing all these concepts together. So we have all these identifiers. So all this data can be used to create unique instances for identifying each single IP kit. So we have as examples there we've mentioned before the GTIN, the GS1 serial number, the batch lot number, and the protocol ID. And I'll add one other thing. There is also an option to use what we call an individual trade item piece. So the protocol ID can also be used with something called this individual ITIP, individual trade item piece, which is another GS1 identifier, which happens to be 8006. So the published guideline. So the clinical trials guidelines have been published. They're available on lots of websites. They're available on what's called the GS1 Global Office website. So that's www.gs1.org. And also a lot of the GS1 member organizations also host these documents. So it is the same document, just hosted in different places. The guideline was ratified Easter time last year. And what you're seeing there is some examples of barcodes that have been created using the different data with the protocol ID. So we have different means of showing what we call human readable information and information that's encoded in the barcode. The last part of that slide on the right-hand side is all our standards that we create are held in a document called General Specifications. So the clinical trial protocol ID identifier, it is detailed and described in that document as well as being in the application standard. So I think we now go towards a live poll now. Is that correct?
Yeah, we can move on to that now.
No, don't take it back. Sorry, I need to go back to the slide. So I'm looking at the wrong slide. I do apologise for that, Carl. Right.
No problem.
A couple of slides before we go on to the poll. Apologise for that confusion there. So where is GS1 used in the life science sector? So how do people know if they can use GS1 standards, if their company is a member of GS1? Okay, the best thing to do is contact your local GS1 member organisation. So if you're based in the UK, you contact GS1 UK. If you're based in France, best contact GS1 France. And they can advise you whether you are actually a member or not. More often than not, you probably will find that somebody within your organisation has joined GS1 for specific purposes, and you can then start using the GS1 standards. Okay. How do I start using GS1 standards? Well, again, there's guidelines for lots of things that GS1 standards cover. As I mentioned, the guidelines for clinical trials detail exactly how you go about doing that. And you can then use that standard in conjunction with other elements of the GS1 system by basically looking at other guidelines and documentation that GS1 has as a way of helping members. The most common, the reason the GTIN information is there, that's the reason most people join GS1. They want to use our standards to allow them to sell things to customers or to their other organisations. Now we move on to the poll question.
Okay, very good, thank you. So to everyone watching, to take part, please just click one option, click submit, and wait for the next slide to view the live results. But the question is, has your business adopted the new GS1 Clinical Trial barcode standards? Yes or no? Okay, so I'm going to give everyone just a moment to think on that, and then we're going to move on. Okay, I think that should be enough time for everyone, hopefully, to have a vote. Let's see how that turned out. Looks like a large majority for no there. Not sure if that was expected or not. Thank you to everyone who took part. Okay, we're moving on to Steve's portion now. So Steve, take it away.
Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm Steve Ellison from Prism ID, and this section of the presentation today is more subjective. It's based around what we see in the marketplace, what we hear from customers, and it's to allow me to sort of tell you and share with you what we're seeing and what we're hearing on that one. So first of all, this slide talks about the general guidance on printing and position of the barcode. Now, there are some very good guides available, especially from the GS1 organization. And for barcode quality, there's a very good ISO document you can download. And at the bottom of this slide, you'll see the exact information. But I'm going to talk about generalizations now. So first of all is you're going to have a 2D barcode on your product label. Now, these are just generalizations. Please allow space around the barcode. If a barcode is encroached by a graphic or a word or any variable, it can be damaged beyond readability. So always position your barcode at least roughly about 2 mil either side of it. Don't put a barcode right on the edge of a label or the box. Again, that can damage its readability. So always look where your barcode goes on your product label. And also look at what we call the human readable text or any other product variables nearby. If you are adding variables to your label, and depending on the languages you use, a simple phrase may be a lot longer than it is in English. And if you don't look at your label with those phrases, that phrase may actually extend into your barcode and again cause readability issues. So always look at your barcode position and the data and how it impacts your barcode. The next area is print resolution. Now, these barcodes can be printed by commercial printers, but as they contain variable information, they tend to be printed as part of the production process. So therefore, they're printed pretty much in batch mode or on demand, a few days, a number of hours, wherever it is, before the product is packed. So they are actually termed on-demand printing. We see the minimum requirement for these barcodes to be printed is 300 dpi. They can be printed lower, but we want to look at the quality of the print, the barcode quality. And that's the important thing, because this barcode is used for automating the exchange of data, i.e. machine to machine. It's not there for humans to read, it's there for barcode readers to pull the information into external data systems. So quality is paramount, so always try to print 300 dpi or above. And again, a barcode works on its contrast, from the white background to the black print. We see barcodes printed in different colors, and we see barcodes printed on different backgrounds. But for the best readability, always try to print a black barcode on a white background. That gives you the best contrast, best quality, and also the best readability in the marketplace and out in the field. So talk about quality, this is something which we can look at a barcode using our eye. It looks nice and it's sharp, but we can't decode with our eyes. So there are software systems which can give you gradings. And there's an ISO grading where 4 is perfect. So a grade A, ISO 4.0 is a perfect barcode. And as those numbers fall and the gradings go from A, B, and C, your barcode quality is deteriorating to a point that it may not read in the field. So always try to print your barcodes to grade 2.5B or above. Now that's easy to do on thermal transfer printers and litho printers and other typical printers we use, but make sure your consumables, your label stock and your printer ink or your printer ribbon are of the right quality. Now, some software systems will actually check your barcode during the printing process using Vision, but for true readability verification of that barcode, always use an offline verifier to actually give you the true reading. And these offline verifiers tend to be shrouded a certain distance from the barcode with a certain wavelength of light. But the online software systems you can get, they're sort of a go, no-go system. So if your online barcode reader fails with a bad grade, then please take your barcode off and check it offline for its quality. And also for the barcode itself, we've got to look at the human readable information. This is the bit that we can read as humans. And it's normally stacked, as we've seen in Neil's presentation earlier. And these are generally placed on either side of the barcode itself, top, bottom, left, or right, depending on the packaging and other constraints you have on the system. Please make sure the human readable is of a size which is eligible. Don't print it at 2 or 3 dots or points height. Make sure it can be read. There are standards on the human readable text itself, minimum sizes, and make sure that text is respectful of the quiet zone or the 2 mil around the barcode itself. We've got to make sure the barcode is readable and the human reader is readable for when the barcode fails on that. So that's general printing guidelines. We also now want to look at a bit more technical, and I won't go into depth here, but these are things we can check with our eyes, and our designers, the people who design our study labels, who put barcodes on those labels, should need to know fairly quickly as you start introducing the GS1 standard into your clinical trial labeling. The top left, fixed pattern damage. Now, a 2D data matrix barcode has what we call the L shape. It has 2 adjacent solid sides, and they are used for reference when the barcode is being decoded by the barcode scanner. And the top left pattern, you can see that L shape, that solid L shape, has been damaged, either by bad data or bad print process. That barcode will not read at all. It's a faulty barcode. So again, as part of the design team, make sure that any barcode which is generated by your system has those solid adjacent bars on the barcode. Now, moving down to bottom left, we've got axial nonconformity. Basically, a 2D data matrix is a square or oblong barcode. Now, when we say oblong, we don't stretch a single barcode to be oblong. You can stack these data matrix barcodes. So you can have 2 or a block of 2 by 2 or 1 by 3, but each barcode itself has to be square. It helps with the decodability because we're reading the ratio between the black dots and the white space, and any stretching of that barcode will make its decodability poor and result in a no read in the field. So designers, please don't stretch the barcode to fit or shrink the barcode or squash the barcode to fit a space on your label. Please remain its aspect ratio as square. Now moving to the top right, symbol contrast. This is where we have a very, very poor contrast between the printed image, either black, and the substrate behind it. And as we know, barcodes read best when it's black and white. If your background is a grey or one of the colours, such as a blue or a red, which can tend to be not as white when seen by a red laser light, this will give you a very, very poor read if it reads at all. So where you can, always try to force down white background, black print to get the optimum symbol contrast, which will get a very reliable, high-grade barcode for use in the field. And the last one, bottom right, modulation. This is where we don't have a very sharp image between the black printed elements and the white space. And we typically see this where a barcode is generated in another package and then copied and pasted as a graphic into your labeling solution. And if you're not copying and pasting the right format of graphic, it can get grayness or fuzziness within the barcode itself. So again, if you're generating barcodes in an external system from your label design and print package, have a look at your label print to make sure that you can generate the barcodes internally to the package and they are sharp, very clear black, very clear white in there. So that's general sort of barcode construction we have there. So we now next go on to the benefits of adopting GS1 standards. Now this is an area where there are very many benefits, and more to the list here. The fundamental reason a barcode was adopted back in 1974, and that was done by Wrigley's, is to remove human error at the point of use. Now, we've all been down to supermarkets where the barcodes fail to read, and the person on the checkout has to type in data manually. We've all had packages delivered to our houses and our homes and our offices where It has barcodes there, but for some reason the guy can't scan it, so he's got to start typing information into his terminal. If a barcode fails, we're back down to the use of people to input data. And if you have people inputting data, you have errors. Errors can be costly. Errors can lead to things getting lost, misplaced. It could even lead to the study being cancelled because the data has been lost, the study data has been removed from the system. So a barcode is really essential for accurate tracking, tracing of any events related to that barcode. So please remember the fundamental reason for a barcode is to remove data input errors, which means that when the IP, the product, the vial, the box, the kit go into the field, where there is paper attached, and Neil showed you an example before of 2 paper forms, we can do away with that paper entry. We can do away with that document. We can actually use a barcode reader to scan the data into your systems. 0 error, which gives you basically removal of human error, gives you increased throughput. If you're issuing products in a study center, you can increase the throughput very rapidly. You can got real-time tracking of the product, because a barcode, remember, is not just for use by the end study center or the manufacturer. Because we're using now GS1 Standards, that barcode can have multiple uses within your facility, in your operation. Because the same barcode can be used for logistics, warehousing, track and trace, returns into your organization, etc., etc. So please think about the barcode not just purely to show you the 7240 protocol number, but you can also add other elements in there which help your facility, your operation, to be more efficient. So here's an example for you. One of our customers has asked us recently if the 2D data matrix can be used for additional information, and yes, it can. So we're asked if the 2D can be used to show 712, which is the National Healthcare Reimbursement Number for France. And below that, you'll see an example of a 2D data matrix for clinical trials with additional field added there. You see there NHRN, AI 712, and a number there. So you can use the barcode, the GS1 standards, to add more fields which are application applicable without damaging the core requirement is to show the 7240, the GTN, lot, and serial number. So please think about, can we leverage more at this barcode within our organization for greater benefit? And the answer is yes on that. So the next slide we have here is, can your organization today generate the new 7240 AI and also the additional one mentioned again by Neil, which is the AI 8006 for additional trade item piece? So one of the things we see is labeling software tends to be a static product. It's installed, it's validated, it's used, and it's there until some event causes you to revisit it. And those events could be IT platform upgrades or new standards being launched on the marketplace, such as the AI 7240. So you need to audit your current labeling software. So when you get back to your labeling solutions, take a look at the barcode generation systems. First of all, can it do 2D data matrix? Can it do the GS1 2D data matrix, which is a special data matrix which is enhanced for GS1 applications? If yes, you're looking good. If no, then you cannot really then print the GS1 standard data matrix. Then look at your AI list. So most labeling software packages will have a drop-down list, and here's an example on the right-hand side, showing the available AIs in the software package itself, the barcode package. So have a scroll down, you'll see 01 GT number, you'll see 10 lot number, you'll see 21 serial numbers. But keep on going and see if you've got 7240 available in your software, and also 8006 as well. And if not, you may need to speak to your software vendor to see if these can be added manually or can be added as a patch to your system. But if the answer is no and no, then really you may need to think about updating your labeling software. The other reason we see people changing their labeling software is IT platform life. When we see labeling software implemented, it tends to be a static closed product. It's validated, all the T&V has been done, it's locked down, and people use it daily, and that's it. But when the underlying platforms or the back-end databases are being obsolete or end of life, then that causes IT administrators to say, right, we need to upgrade from, for example, Windows 7 to Windows 10, and look at the platforms running on the old Windows 7 platform to say, hey, is this labeling software compatible with Windows 10? Is there an upgrade for that software to make it run on Windows 10? Do we have to revalidate it? The answer is yes, we do. So is there any sort of ongoing IT activities in your organization which is causing questions to be asked about your current labeling platform suitability for the new platforms? And if yes, it's an ideal opportunity to actually look around and say, right, if we need to upgrade our software package, our labeling software, due to the business introducing Windows 10 or changing its servers, then it's an ideal opportunity to say, right, if our labeling software is not compatible and we have an IT refresh, then let's do it once. Let's do it all at the same time and adopt a touch-it-once approach. And this is very important because it minimizes disruption, reduces cost, and gets you in the latest labeling platform on the latest IT platforms for a stable long-term future. So the next one we're going to look at is auditing your current labeling software. I apologize there. So software itself, it's design and print at its basic form. Other labeling software gives you the audit log, the electronic signatures, the ability to output to RFID chips, to output to e-labels, to electronic ink, to output crop mark PDF quality booklets. So your software is something which you have specified for your labeling operation. But if you're going to look at updating your software due to a platform obsolescence or it's not capable of printing GS1 data matrices, take a look and ask yourself these questions. Is your current software compliant to current labeling needs? Probably is yes, because you're printing labels today. But by looking at your software and seeing it doesn't have the right AIs in there, then you know you may have to change it. And then if you are going to be looking at changing your labeling software, ask yourself a question: is it compatible with future industry needs, changing industry needs, things we are talking about but yet not introduced, such as the use of pictograms or common phrases? Can we output our data to the e-labeling directives or to drive e-ink labels? So if you're going to change your labeling platform today, make sure you've got some future proofing. Very important, because if you haven't, in 1-2 years' time, when there's a new standard comes out, you may have to go through the whole process again, revalidate, change your software at a huge cost and time to the business. So think about future proofing. Also, it's a good opportunity if you're going to change your labeling solution because it's no longer compatible with GS1 standards or whatever. Are you heavily based on paper systems? Because today's labeling solutions can actually remove a lot, if not all, of the paper-based documents. We quite often see a label being printed, stuck to a sheet of paper, and then manually walk around a business for sign-off. Can that be automated electronically? Yes, it can. We often see labels being pulled off for DHR reports or retain labels being pulled off and stuck to pieces of paper. Can we generate electronic reports with that label embedded as a PDF and shared electronically? So look again, if you're going to be looking at your labeling solution, can you remove paper-based systems and be more streamlined, more efficient, with stronger compliance and stronger audit logs, etc.? Now, the next one is that we see in our industry, the clinical trial industry, that some businesses are growing by acquisition. They are covered by several sites. They're disparate. They're running different systems in different sites. We have other directions coming through. So again, if you are looking at replacing labeling software, it's an ideal time to look at the bigger picture. Can we have a group-wide or company-wide single platform? Can we allow the transfer or reprinting of labels in different territories? You know, a label to be printed in the States. For some reason, there's a reprint required in Poland or Egypt. Can we have some localized remote printing facilities? So again, look at your labeling software and think, well, we have the ideal opportunity now to really push the boat out and embrace some new technologies, some new ideas, just-in-time printing, label postponement, etc., etc. So that's what I'm talking about today, is looking at the use of barcodes for the greater good, removing human errors, and also making sure that your labeling platform is compliant with these new directives coming through. Now, so quick summary, and the first thing is the adoption of GS1 standard mandatory? And the answer is no, it's not. At the moment, it's optional, it's advisory. And we see from the poll that 5% of the attendees today are using it, 95% are not. It's a new directive, it's a new recommendation. It's being pushed out by one or two of the major sponsors out there. The benefits are real, the benefits have been quantified, removal of human error, better visibility of the product in the supply chain, returns, better visibility of the product being issued to the patients, etc. So will the adoption of this barcode in your application bring benefits? And the answer is yes, it will. So the next summary point we have is this. Any timelines for its adoption as an official requirement? No, there isn't. Not yet. I'm not aware of any sort of deadlines being brought, but there are agencies out there who are looking to do it. The GS1 organization is active. The key sponsors who help develop this barcode GS1 standard are talking to the authorities as well. So maybe sometime in the very near future it will become a legal requirement, but we're not there yet. Also look at other parts of your business to see if you can use or get any gains from using this barcode. And the answer is yes. The GS1 standard, as Neil said before, it's used globally. It's used right through the supply chain. Using that barcode or printing that barcode on your study label, your cut labels, your packaging can be utilized by logistics. It can be utilized by people in the field. It can be used at study centers. So if we can reduce 1, 2, 3 data errors per study, per issue, it's going to be amazing for the industry. So see if you can adopt it for other uses. Talk to other departments you have in your organization. Are there any disadvantages in adopting it now? No. Unless you have a label which is so packed with data that you don't have space for a 2D data matrix and a human readable, then I don't see any disadvantages. As again, Neil showed you before, there are some products out there with several barcodes on them, which causes confusion. If we can have one barcode to the GS1 standard, it can be utilized by anybody. You can scan it and pull the data up, which you require for your own parts. So you can add additional fields to the barcode as well, which may aid logistics. You can add additional fields, which may help you with the NHRA numbers. You can keep the standards we have in there, such as the 01, 10, 21, 7240. You may even want to put the expiry date in the barcode and use the AI 17. So there are no, I don't see, I'm not aware of any disadvantage in adopting it now. I can only see advantages. What do we need to adopt this standard? Really is it's your labeling software solution and the data that feeds it. Check your software. See if you can do the AI today. If not, start forming a resolution plan. The barcode is not compulsory. You're under no pressure to print that barcode today. But if it's a CRO organization, you may be asked by one of your sponsors to print it. And if you can't have the capability of printing it, there may be impact. So go and check your software. And if it's not compliant with GS1 standards and the AIs we've mentioned today, start discussing internally and see if you can get a project to start looking at changing that software. Speak to your IT department, see if there are any platform obsolescence changes underway. Speak to your logistics team to see if they can utilize it, and start forming a project to update that software and leverage the benefits it will bring. Who's using GS1 today? We've seen from the survey 5% of people. That's 5% more than there was a year ago. And if we do the same presentation next year, will it be 25%, 35%? Probably, because some of the sponsors are driving it, some of the CROs are adopting it and using it now. So I'm very much to say that this uptake will be fairly quick as the industry embraces the GS1 standard in clinical trials and starts leveraging benefits from that. Work with IT. I keep on talking about IT. Changing any sort of software package in a regulated and compliant industry, it takes cost and time. You can't make changes without compliance. You can't make changes without the rerun of some validation. You can't make changes without changing SOPs. So it's an expensive job, time-consuming job to change your labeling software. So if you're going to change it, adopt a touch it once. Let's get your IT platforms, your labeling software, and other things all changed at the same time touch it once, upgrade, update, and be ready for the changes coming through in the near future. And the last one for me is listen to the industry. I've been involved in this industry now for 6 years. I've heard talk increasing of the use of pictograms. There are some starting to be used. I've seen now the introduction of the GS1 standard in there. Things are changing. We're embracing new technologies, e-labeling, e-ink on some products. Keep an eye on the media, keep an eye on the regulatory people, keep an eye on who's doing what out there, because these things are coming through, and if your labeling platform is future-proofed, you can embrace it without any issues. So that's my presentation part done today. We'll now hopefully go on to the last slide, which is the famous Q&A slide.
Okay, thank you. It's now time for the. It's time for the Q&A now. So a quick reminder on how that works. If you want to take part, just type your questions into the box in the top left-hand corner of your screen, click submit, and then wait to hear if they're read out. All right, we've had quite a few already, so I'm just going to get started with. What is the best printing technology for printing GS1 data matrix barcode?
I'll take that, Neil, but Neil, please jump in if you want to add to it as well. It's down to your substrate. In life science, there are pharma. And pharma have been printing something called serialization for a number of years, actually printing a 2D data matrix with their own AIs and their own data onto products on the production line at high speeds. And that uses something called high-res coding or laser coding. We've seen in med device the adoption of the GS1 standard, and med device tends to be more about assembly and thermal transfer printers. And we're seeing in clinical trials the adoption now of higher resolution thermal transfer printers and also the adoption of inkjet label printers, which print at higher DPI ratings. So look at your substrate, i.e. your material, your label or your box. Look at the application. Is it automated? Is it production line? Is it manually assembled? And that will then help you decide what type of printing technology you want. Generally, in clinical trials, it's all thermal transfer printers, 95% of those, but we are seeing the higher DPI print heads coming in, 400 DPI, 600 DPI thermal transfers, and we're seeing adoption of the inkjet label printers, which are printing up to 1200 DPI. So it gives you very sharp text and very sharp high-quality barcodes. So ask the question about your substrate, how the label is being applied, if it's a box label, and then we can assist on the hardware choices. But generally, thermal transfer, 300 DPI is probably the minimum requirement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Another question asking, who decides what healthcare business issues need to be addressed during GS1 standards?
Okay, I think that's a question at me, I think. So I'll take that, Steve. Generally, the way GS1 works and engages is we wait for industry generally to come to us with a business problem. So I did cover that on one of the slides. As I mentioned, we're a user-driven organisation, and the standards are only changed and amended to meet business needs of the industry. So in this case, the clinical trials, people from different companies came to us because they couldn't use existing GS1 standards to meet the clinical trials requirements. So that's why that specific standard and these application guidelines were created. That's about the end for that.
I just had that question. I can just add to that there's a very good PDF white paper document on the GS1 website. There's two very nice single-page documents. One's got a handout, one's got a poster, which gives you a summary of the standard, and a lot of the graphics we use today have been taken from those documents. But there is about a 40-page white paper on the history, which organizations were driving this adoption of this standard, and why it's been built, and how it's applied, etc. And that document is very, very useful for anybody who's thinking about adding a barcode to their clinical trials. Download it. It's very, very useful and very informative. Thanks.
Yeah, Steve's right. This is Neil. Steve's right. There's a whole section on GS1's website all regarding clinical trials. There's some fantastic information there specific to this subject.
Okay, thank you both. On to our next question, which asks, Has there been any subsequent work carried out by GS1 for clinical trials?
Again, I think that's
you, Neil.
to me. To the trough. Yes. So the guidelines that were issued that we've been presenting on today were completed around about March, April last year, 2019. And since then, there's been another group. Again, some of the participants from the original work group are participating in this to develop standards for what we call data exchange. So that's basically how you share the information between different organizations, because there was no guidelines and standards to cover that. So that's been currently worked on at the moment. And within GS1, what we have is we have a process that develops the standards. They then get reviewed by the community, and then they're published to the community and published to everybody for adoption and for use. So currently, at the moment, that standard is in the final, what I call last piece of review. So I expect those standards and guidelines to be released around about, I guess, about April 2020, April this year. So that will then basically allow, you'll then have the identification, which we've created the AI for, the application identifiers for. The barcode, the carrier, is already decided, and now the share mechanism will be covered in this documentation as well. I hope that answers that question.
Okay, very good. Someone here has asked, you used the term touch it once. What does that mean?
This is something we've seen in med device. There is a remit called EU MDR, which required the medical device industry to add a new symbol to the labels and undertake a review of label content to a new standard and to resubmit the information to a clearinghouse. From that experience, an MDR has been around for about 2-3 years now in terms of its inception to its final go live date. We've seen customers spend a lot of money doing EU MDR work, changing all their label contents, reviving things, even changing their software to be EU MDR compliant, and then 6 months later on, IT come in and say we're going to change the platforms, and therefore the software has to be revalidated again. There's a lot of wasted time, a lot of wasted cost by having all departments in your company working in isolation. So by touching it once, it means that you get together with the IT team, your user community, your dispatch, your logistics people, sit around a table and say, right, we've got a platform change coming up. We've got to change our labeling software because it doesn't have the AIs in it we need. Can we build a project and get it done once? So we have a minimum repeat of work. We only do validation once, and we'll get the new platforms and the labeling solution in production at the same time without any future disruption. So that's what I mean by touch it once. If you do it right, it saves a lot of money. And we've seen a large med device customer quoting almost $4 million for an IT platform change and to embrace MDR. That's a lot of money just to remain static in terms of new platforms, new labeling software with no massive gains. So always speak to your IT department and other departments to make sure that if you are going to change something, you change it in unison. Okay?
Okay, very good. Where can I find out more information on GS1 Standards use in healthcare?
Only one place to go. Go on, Neil. Sure, baby.
Okay, so the best place to start with looking is, as I say, the GS1 website. So what you'll find is, if you just type in www.gs1.org, whichever country you're in, it'll pretty much take you there. So when it clicks, it knows where you are based in the world based on your internet connection. But on that Global Office website, it has all the information. So we have different sector headings in there for retail, apparel, marketplace, and so on. And there's a section specifically detailing all the healthcare stuff in there. So we've got the information on clinical trials. We've got the information on medical devices, so for regulations on that and how GS1 standards can be used for that, and other regulations throughout the world that use GS1 standards. There's information there for everybody. Some of it isn't specific to certain regions. Some of it's quite general, but it's a good starting place to look. And the documentation is generic throughout the world. So for clinical trials, it applies wherever you are. The guidelines apply wherever you are in the world. If you've got any more
I can
questions,
highly recommend it.
you can contact. Sorry, Cameron, Steve.
Yeah, and sorry to interrupt you there. And say I can highly recommend that you go and visit the GS1 website. I've been using it for many, many years, even when the organisation was called the EAN. It's great information. It's always up to date, and it gives you great guidance into the industry in general. Sorry, Neil. I wanted to say that one.
No, there's nothing more to add. It's a repository for all the latest information, and for certain guidelines, you can also download it into your local language. So the clinical trials guidelines, I don't believe, have been translated into anything other than English. But for example, if you need more information on how to manage your GTINs, so how those are allocated and managed, there's guidelines in there for numerous different languages based on the member requirements and user requirements. You finished?
Good.
Okay, thank you both. And we have a question asking, I noticed that the GS1 barcodes shown don't have an expiry date. Can this be added?
Someone's been very sharp watching the slides, which is nice to hear. Yes, GS1 Standard means you can add additional AIs into a barcode. Because when that barcode is read in the field, the way the GS1 Standard works is it sees the AI, it recognizes the AI, so it sees, example, AI 10, it knows the following data is a lot number. If it sees AI 01, it knows there's 14 digits following it, which is the product number. So if you add additional AIs into your 2D data matrix, they can be interpreted out in the field. So if you add AI 17, any system will see 17 and say, right, that's an expiry date, and expect to see 6 digits being year, month, day after the AI 17. So in clinical trials, you may have additional AIs in your barcode, but the reading systems in the study centers and logistics will only interpret the AIs nominated. So you may have 10 AIs in your barcode, but when that barcode is scanned in a study center, it will pull out AI 01, AI 10, AI 21, which is serial number, and AI 7240, or whatever ones are in there. So you can add as many as you want into the barcode without changing the purpose of the barcode in clinical trials labeling and its use. Is that correct, Neil? Anything else to add to that?
No, absolutely. I mean, the great thing about the barcode that is generally used in healthcare is it can accommodate a lot of data. So you can start adding information that you feel is appropriate for the use. And sometimes that information isn't used, sometimes isn't acted upon. But if it's there, then people can use it. So, for example, the National Healthcare Reimbursement Number, if that isn't required, then it won't be used within the region that it's been put on for. So yes, it can carry a lot more information. There's lots of identifiers. These are defined by GS1. So again, look on the GS1 website for the list of what can be used and what is appropriate.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you both. And I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. We did get quite a lot of questions, so if it wasn't read aloud, don't worry, you may still be contacted later on over email with a more in-depth answer, so keep an eye out there. Otherwise, it just leaves me to thank Neil and Steve for what was a great presentation, and of course to Prism ID for sponsoring this session. To everyone watching, you will be receiving an email shortly letting you know how to access the on-demand version of this webinar, or you can always watch it through our website, which is www.business-review-webinars.com. We look forward to sharing further webinars with you, so please do keep an eye out on the website I just mentioned. And follow us on Twitter @BRWebinars for daily updates, and join our LinkedIn group, Business Review Webinars. Thank you all once again, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day.